Hey, what's up, guys? Frosty here with another hand of the week for you. I played this hand on the 14th, and that whole second week went really well for me. I went on a nice little heater of about 35 buy-ins. Wasn't even running too much above EV or anything, just the games were pretty good, and I was playing pretty well. So I was beating them for like 8.7 BBs per 100 or something. It's pretty sick, pretty unsustainable, but nice to go on a little bit of a heater. And the best thing about it is I'm just like really confident in all my plays right now, which makes coaching nice. And enough bragging, let's get into the hand here. The reason I chose this hand was just because I thought it was a good example of how to get max value from fish, a fishier player. Because you only get so many big hands against fishier players, you really want to make the most of it. Otherwise, somebody else will stack them, or you might not get another opportunity, etc. So I'll just start the hand and I'll just go through my thought process on each street, basically. So we got this really short stack guy opening under the gun. We got a fishier player calls. Once again, I turned off the HUD stats because they're kind of meaningless. I only had like 29 hands on this Jaguar player who's going to be the fish in the hand. And I had a pretty small sample on this other guy too. But they both were kind of playing passive, I guess. Fishy passive. So against these two kind of players, I'm going to be calling here in the big blind all day. We get a really good price, and if these guys were regular players, I'd probably just fold, to be honest, even with that good price, because you kind of, when you start calling with these low pocket pairs, especially out of position, you kind of get yourself into trouble where the only way you're going to get action is if they have a bigger set. Because even if you do hit your set, it's pretty tough to get value a lot of the times. But against two fishier players, I'm going to be calling all day. Maybe if Jaguar folded, I'd probably fold the big blind because this guy's super short. And there wouldn't be a lot of value in calling because we just have to check fold so much. And even if we hit our set, we'd probably definitely stack him, but he only has $15 anyway, so it would hardly be worth it. So we get a really good flop here, obviously with middle set. And now our decision becomes, do we want to donk lead this flop, or do we want to check raise? Check calling is never really an option against these players. But yeah, in this spot, I kind of prefer a check raise usually over a lead. Maybe if, again, if they were regular players, I might lead it just because a check raise does look quite strong in this spot. A lead might make my hand seem a little bit weaker. But against these two players, I'm definitely not really concerned about that. And I think the guy who opened under the gun is so short that he's going to be c-betting like a lot of the time, even with just overcards. And like he did open under the gun, so there's definitely a chance he has a big pair. And even if he checks through, there's a decent chance that the fish is going to stab the other fish, and then we can check raise that way. So yeah, for those reasons, I kind of prefer a check raised. Also, the board texture is important because there's two diamonds out there. It is fairly wet. I definitely want to try to start piling more money in on this flop, rather than like lead and then like have them just call. Maybe they'll just call with a diamond draw, or maybe they'll like just call with like a pair of eights, where otherwise they might like fall in love with it, and then if we check raise, and then they might just stack off right there. So that was my decision, or my thought process on the flop, and I check. Unfortunately, the under the gun player checks, and then unfortunately the fish checks through. So the check raise was a fail on the flop, but we make quads on the turn, which is obviously good, but it also is kind of tough to get value from anything else at this point because they did check through the flop. I wouldn't expect them to have any piece to that flop or even an overpair. So again, I think a lot of players might be tempted to just lead this turn now that they check through and just kind of try to start building a flop. Building a pot. But like I said, the way I saw it was just that I just didn't expect either of these guys to have a piece of the board if they just check through the flop. So I decided to check again. Also, I think by checking again, the under the gun player might start stabbing with overcards, like if he's in there with like ace king, ace queen type hands, and he got checked through in the flop, and the board pairs on the turn, he might think he has the best hand, and he might stab at it. Similar thought process for the fish. If it checks through the fish, I thought he might stab at it. Whereas if I lead, I think I just fold those hands out, and like I said, because they just check through in the flop, I just can't really see what they would call with. So yeah, I decided to check, and under the gun does stab, and then the fish calls, which is kind of surprising. And at this point, I'm like kind of sticking with my read that the under the gun player is just kind of stabbing with overcards, and I'm thinking the other fish might have picked up a heart draw. Like that would make sense. It would also make sense that the under the gun player could have a heart draw as well. So I think now is definitely the time to check raise though. I don't want to get too cute and just call here. The main reason just because if they do have a heart draw or even a diamond draw, which is less likely, but possible that the second fish could have a diamond draw. I think that the only way I'm going to get more value is if I check raise right now and hope that they just are kind of stubborn and call with that draw rather than just call and then, you know, maybe they'll bluff the river, but maybe they'll just kind of give it up. So I just had to check raise here. And in terms of sizing, I think my sizing's pretty good. I definitely didn't want to make it too big because if they are on a draw, I want to give them like a price that looks okay for them to chase. If that 5 was like a 10 or like a 9, like an offsuit 9 or 10, I might make it bigger. I might make it like 16 to 19, anywhere in that kind of range, just because there would be more hands that they could likely have and the board would be a lot wetter. But yeah, with them probably drawing dead at this point, I just thought my sizing didn't have to be very big, and yeah, that's why I chose 14. And unfortunately, the first guy folds, but the second guy calls, which is awesome. I'm really thinking he has a heart draw at this point, with the off chance of him maybe checking back a 7 on the flop, which would be really weird, and I wouldn't expect that to be too often. And then the river comes with 4 diamonds, which is obviously we're hoping kind of to see a heart, but it's fine too because then there's also a greater chance that he might bluff and try to represent the diamond draw. So the biggest decision of this hand is definitely on the river here. I think a lot of people would just bet in this spot and just hope that the fish here player just calls with any piece of the board, but like I really thought like the only thing that really makes sense here is for him to have a heart draw, and obviously he's just gonna fold that if I bet. So I definitely think checking's the right move here. Just because of the way the hand played out, it just really makes sense for this guy to have a heart draw, and that's pretty much it. I think another reason people like betting in this spot is just because they kind of feel embarrassed when they check and the opponent checks, and then like you just show down quads. And it can be a little bit embarrassing that you have such a big hand and just chose to check it. But I think you just need to definitely not worry about that and just go with what makes sense. So yeah, I'm basically checking here and just hoping he's bluffing. He bluffs his miss hearts. And I check, and he shoves, which is obviously fantastic. And we call him, obviously. And he had ace-3 hearts. So I was right with my read that he did have the heart draw, but it was actually a great river without like realizing it because he made a straight. But his overshove on that river is a huge mistake. It's just super terrible. He basically, you see this a lot from weaker players too. They'll do these plays that basically let you free roll. Like by that I just mean like he's shoving there and he's never gonna get called by a worse hand. Like I'm never gonna hero call him there with like a hand that I don't have him beat with. So yeah, his shove there is just super crazy, and I guess he was going for value, but it totally backfired on him. But yeah, and we won a nice pot. So that was the hand of the week. Feel free to post questions or comments, and I will see you next week. Alright guys, take care.